facing the police every single day.
Family and friends of Botham Jean celebrated his life Thursday.
Botham aimed high.
His smile lit up a room.
He was the guy you called anytime you needed anything.
And talked about meeting him for the first time.
I said, hit me with your real name, bro. He said, Botham Jean. I said, Bo, B.O., that's what it's gonna be, bro.
The 26-year-old was shot and killed 1 week ago by off-duty Dallas police officer Amber Geiger inside his own apartment.
We as Americans, as humans, must turn away from the incivility that has rotted away at our interactions and not overreacting with deadly force.
The 30-year-old officer told investigators that she mistakenly entered Jean's after she gave verbal commands that were ignored. She fired her handgun twice, hitting him once in the torso.
One of the things I would like is for Amber to just come clean.
Before the funeral, the Jean family spoke to CBS News.
Do you think she will get justice? Are you worried that she won't?
That's my worry.
The Dallas mayor and the city's police chief attended Thursday's service. Mourners spoke to the family directly.
Please know that we stand with you as you search for accountability and as you search for healing.
A grand jury could ultimately decide to bump up the manslaughter charge Geiger faces to murder. Jean will be laid to rest in his native St. Lucia. Omar Villafranca, CBS News, Dallas.
Dallas police attempt to smear Botham Jean over tiny bit of weed and they failed, miserably. Police waited until the day of the innocent man's funeral to release the affidavit claiming they found weed in Botham Jean's home, an obvious smear campaign. By Matt Agarist, September 14, 2018. Dallas, Texas. The Dallas police on Thursday announced the findings of a search warrant they executed on the home of Botham Jean after he was gunned down in his apartment by one of their own. The department is now accused of trying to smear Jean by claiming they found a tiny bit of marijuana in his house, as if this justifies going into someone's home and murdering them. The timing couldn't have been more insidiously planned, as police released the affidavit on the day of Jean's funeral despite having allegedly found the marijuana last week. According to the affidavit, when they searched his home, police claimed to have found 10.4 grams of pot, less than half an ounce. Police also said they found 2 fired cartridge casings, a police backpack and vest, and a metal marijuana grinder. The horror. Even if police did find marijuana, why on earth would they execute a search warrant on an innocent dead man's home and then release that information to the public? The police immediately began looking to smear him, Attorney Lee Merritt said. I think it's unfortunate that law enforcement began to immediately criminalize the victim in this case, someone who was clearly the victim. That has absolutely no bearing on the fact that he was shot in his home, Merritt added to Fox 4. Pointing out the glaring nature of the smear campaign was the fact that there has been absolutely zero information released about the warrants conducted on Officer Amber Geiger, the killer cop who lived just below Jean. I would love to see more information coming out about the warrants executed on the home of the shooter who lived just below him. I haven't seen any of those, said Merritt. Merritt accused the department of conducting a common assassination attempt on the victim that we often see in law enforcement-involved shootings. Sadly, he appears to be correct in his accusations. It is standard procedure for police to dig up dirt on their victims in attempts to smear and assassinate their character to make the killer cops look good in the public eye. Even sadder, however, is the fact that these smear campaigns work most of the time. As the Free Thought Project reported on Wednesday, according to police who continue to attempt to spin this story into some tragic mistake, Geiger accidentally went into the wrong apartment, mistook Jean for an intruder and killed him. Geiger entered the building and walked down the 4th-floor hallway to what she thought was her apartment, according to the arrest warrant made public Monday afternoon. She inserted a unique door key, with an electronic chip, into the door keyhole. The door, which was slightly ajar prior to Geiger's arrival, fully opened under the force of the key insertion. Geiger drew her firearm, gave verbal commands that were ignored by Jean, according to the warrant. Geiger fired her handgun 2 times, striking Jean in the torso. Geiger entered the apartment, immediately called 911, requesting police and EMS, and provided first aid to Jean. Due to the interior darkness of the apartment, Geiger turned on the interior lights while on the phone with 911. Upon being asked where she was located by emergency dispatchers, Geiger returned to the front door to observe the address and discovered she was at the wrong apartment, according to the arrest warrant. At no time, according to the warrant, does Geiger say what verbal commands she gave. What's more, any verbal commands she did give were entirely irrelevant as she was the intruder, not Jean. Attempting to imply that Jean was somehow at fault for his own death for disobeying the commands of a homicidal cop who'd just illegally broken into his home is as irresponsible as it is reprehensible. What's more, according to the attorneys for Jean, when Geiger was on the phone with police, she had to go outside to verify the address of the apartment, implying that she knew she was in the wrong apartment from the start. From the fact that when you look at an affidavit and I'm thinking that I'm at my house and I call 911 because someone was just shot, attorney Daryl Washington said. Well, the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm not going to go outside and look at my address. I'm going to give them my address right there on the phone. I'm going to say I'm on the phone. My address is this. Why did she have to go outside to verify the address? It makes no sense whatsoever. Even more ominous than having to verify the address is the fact that according to witnesses, Geiger's story of inserting the key into Jean's door and it opening up was simply not true. According to witnesses, Geiger was banging on Jean's door, demanding he let her in. Independent witnesses have already come forward to say that they heard this officer pounding on the door and demanding to be let in. Lee Merritt, one of the attorneys representing the Jean family, told ABC News. The contradictions begin to build from there. The doors in the complex are also equipped with an automatic closing mechanism. This was demonstrated by the attorneys who opened the door and released it several times, showing that it closed every single time, blowing the claim that the door was somehow ajar completely out of the water. Jean's family also pointed out that it would have been incredibly unlikely for Geiger to mistake Jean's apartment for her own, as he had a distinct red doormat, which would have been enough for the cop to know she was at the wrong place. Allison Harris. Heavy checkmark. At Allison Fox 4 News. The hallway outside the apartment where Botham Jean was shot and killed by a Dallas police officer. 9:50 a.m., September 8, 2018, Dallas, Texas. 69. 42 people are talking about this. Twitter adds info and privacy. Even as cops come to Geiger's defense and attempt to shame, smear, and discredit her victim, who was an upstanding member of society regardless of the plant they claim to have found, they are failing miserably. Despite cops rallying behind the blue line to defend this killer cop, the rest of the country is not buying it. In a damning tweet, writer Kashana Colley summed up the nature of the smear campaign quite succinctly. In response to cops claiming to find a tiny bit of weed, she pointed out that there was also a homicidal cop inside too. Kashana. Heavy checkmark. At Kashana Colley. His apartment also contained an off-duty homicidal cop. Fox 4 News. Heavy checkmark. At Fox 4. Developing, search warrant, marijuana found in Botham Jean's apartment after deadly shooting. http://bit.ly/2d2fd0u. View image on Twitter. 7 p.m., September 13, 2018. 135K. 33.5K people are talking about this. Twitter adds info and privacy. Spread the love.
This 4th floor apartment instead of her 3rd floor apartment. It says she tried to use an electronic key to open the door, but it was already open. She walked inside and told investigators it was totally dark when she noticed a large silhouette. Geiger says she thought John was a burglar and shot him after he ignored her commands. It wasn't until a 911 operator asked for her location that she says she noticed she was in the wrong apartment. So with me now is John's family attorney, S. Lee Merritt. So, Mr. Merritt, thank you so much for being with me. Of course, our condolences to the family.
I'll pass those along, Brooke. Thank you for having me.
I know that you and this family do not accept the official account from the arrest documents from police. You tell me why, and how do you explain how this officer ended up in a home that wasn't hers?
Much of the affidavit just simply doesn't comport with common sense. The latter part of your question, how do I explain what happened? Unfortunately, I can't. Typically, I have some sort of theory of what happened in this case. Here, I have no idea. I do know that certain statements within this affidavit are demonstratively false. For example, that door being ajar, those doors close automatically unless Botham propped it open because he was expecting a guest or something, and I'm making up excuses. It wouldn't have been open. And so what the family knows, what all the friends know, what everyone I've talked to about Botham knows, is that he wouldn't have propped that door open. He's a very meticulous accountant. Somebody who's intentional in everything that they do. He doesn't prop doors open when they're expecting guests. And I've spoken to people who were interacting with him minutes before this happened. He wasn't expecting any guests. And so what actually happened is still a big mystery, but I know that what's stated in this affidavit is simply untrue.
You said you had a theory as to why she ended up in the wrong apartment. What's your theory?
No. I said typically I would have a theory.
Oh, and you don't have a theory in this case.
I have no theory here.
I got you. I understand after all this happened, 2 witnesses, and you tell me, I believe the 2 witnesses went separately, came forward saying that they did hear something. Is that correct? Can you tell me what those witnesses said?
Yeah, so the 2 witnesses are actually roommates, and one was in the living room, the other one was in her bedroom. One was in the living room watching television, the other in her bedroom. They both heard a knock or a pounding on the door. The one who was closer to the scene in her bedroom reading a book, she heard pounding followed by a female's voice saying, "Open up, let me in." She said the voice didn't sound like an officer command, but sounded like someone who wanted to be let into the apartment. She said that was shortly followed by the sound of gunshots and the sound of a man's voice saying what she believed to be, "Oh my God, why did you do that?" Again, I have a difficult time figuring out how those facts play into what we know. But I know that if a door is locked, there's no one pounding on it. I'm sorry, if a door is open, there's no one pounding.
There wouldn't be anyone pounding on it to let them in. Why do you know? Did this officer and Mr. John, did they know each other?
No one that I know who has a personal relationship with both of them can connect these 2 in any meaningful way. The only connection that we have been able to make is she is his immediate downstairs neighbor. And there were noise complaints from the immediate downstairs neighbors about whoever was upstairs, and that would have been both of them. In fact, there was a noise complaint that very day about upstairs activity in Botham's apartment. Botham received a phone call about noise coming from his apartment from the downstairs neighbor.
I see. And just lastly, I just wanted to read part of the statement from the Dallas DA spokesperson. It's important to maintain the integrity of the case. Once all the evidence is presented, it will go to the grand jury. No timeline estimate on how that goes forward. Ongoing investigation. Case will be thoroughly investigated. S. Lee Merritt, appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Funeral services today for the Dallas man who was shot and killed in his own apartment by an off-duty cop. She claims she mistook his apartment for hers, but the attorney for the dead man's family is highly skeptical about that and says a look inside his apartment supports their view. Jim Murray has your first look inside.
It's an exclusive look inside the apartment where a Dallas man was tragically shot to death by a cop who mistook the apartment for her own. We're taking you inside the apartment for the first time since the deadly shooting, looking for clues as to why Botham Jean was shot and killed by an off-duty police officer inside his own unit. It's a typical bachelor's apartment. The leather sofa piled high with clothes, a bowl of cereal on the ottoman, and a flip-flop nearby. Let the Spirit of the Lord and let it ride. 26-year-old Botham Jean was a devout Christian. Off-duty Dallas police officer Amber Geiger says she thought she was entering her own apartment on the 3rd floor, but in fact, she was on the 4th floor. Lee Merritt, the attorney for the victim's family, says the hallways are the same, but there are distinguishing things, like this potted plant on the cop's floor. There are no plants on the victim's floor. There was a red doormat in front of Jean's apartment, but no mat at the cop's apartment. After the shooting, Amber Geiger told police that she found Jean's door ajar. Attorney Merritt says the apartment doors have a sure slam system. They close automatically.
I went in there hoping to find some answers to get a better understanding about what happened. I didn't find anything that provided any clarity.
Rumors are rampant that Officer Geiger and Jean knew each other. Do you have any sense that the two people knew each other?
Not in the sense that most people think, like a past relationship.
Amber Geiger, a 4-year member of the police force, has been arrested on a manslaughter charge. She's now free on bond.
Police use who may want to retaliate against him physically.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I just wanted you to know that I am using this stuff under fair use. And also remember to like and subscribe this channel. Also too, keep in mind I do not make any money on YouTube. This is 5 hours work a day, you know, fighting for freedom. And you can donate with PayPal and Patreon. I just want you to think about this. If everybody gives to PayPal and Patreon, Patreon is every month. Actually, PayPal you can do every month. I have 12,000 subscribers. If everybody gives, I can quit my regular job and go full-time investigations on Charlotte County and possibly even more and beyond. So just keep that in mind. If everybody helps out, I can go full-time doing this. Thanks.